channel. So it means so much to me that you all care to come on this ASMR journey with me. That being said, now that I have kind of a genre of videos that I'm doing, so like true crime, Reddit stories, relaxing with me videos, stuff like that, I want to make a schedule. So what I have decided so far is Mondays will be alternating between true crime and Reddit stories, and Wednesdays will be for unrelated to true crime requested videos. I have gotten a lot more requests than expected, and I am not complaining. That is not a complaint, but it is going to take time to do those. But if you have commented something, a request, I promise, I pinky promise, I see it, and it is in my notebook, and it is in the making. So, Wednesdays will be for those requested videos. So I hope that everyone is happy with the content I'm producing on my channel. Alright, now that that kind of long intro is out of the way, I will get started. As usual for Reddit videos, I have my laptop sitting in front of me, and I also have a candle to light because I think it's always very relaxing to light a candle when I'm winding down for the night. So, this candle is lavender vanilla. I think the scent is so relaxing. So, I will go ahead and light that. I love the crackle it makes when it first sparks. I don't have room to keep it in the camera frame, but it will be sitting behind me. I am on the Reddit No Sleep and they post scary short stories, original scary short stories. So I will be reading those to you. This first story is called, have you heard of this app called Are You Being Followed? I've always been afraid of being never left me. The pay was lousy, and the boss forbade employees to park their cars in the parking lot reserved for customers. So every night, I had to walk alone for several minutes to my car parked a little further away. One day, as I was talking to one of my friends, she told me about this application. Don't you know this app? It's called, quote, Are You Being Followed? Or AYBF for short. Basically, the app detects the waves of nearby cell phones, and if the algorithm notices that a signal is following you, the app sends you a notification, she explained. Some say it also detects ghosts and supernatural creatures that give off particular waves, but I think that's BS to attract views on TikTok, she added. I couldn't quite figure out how it worked, but she assured me that the algorithm was never wrong, and that it had already allowed her once to be alerted early enough to be safe from a strange man one night. I downloaded it, figuring it couldn't hurt. One evening, as I was walking down the street clutching my coat, I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. It was the app, and it had sent me a notification, and on the screen simply appeared the message, You are being followed. I slowed down and looked around. The street was deserted, only the wind sounding in my ears. Perplexed, I continued walking, the sound of my solitary footsteps echoing around me. A minute later, I received another notification. You are being followed. With no one behind me, I wondered if it was a bug or if this app was just a scam. Boo! I jumped and shouted, and right in front of me was my colleague, Ian, wallowing in laughter. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Here, you forgot your tips, and he handed me some bills. Next time you do that, I said, I'll empty my pepper spray in your face. Safe in my car, I finally managed to laugh it off, and figured that at least I had proved that the app actually worked. The app never triggered again after that, until tonight. I just finished a long evening and was exhausted. All I wanted to do was go home and go to bed. As I was walking alone in the cold night, with just enough strength to look at the tips of my feet without falling asleep walking, my cell phone vibrated and I picked it up, thinking someone had sent me a text message. You are being followed. The appearance of the message caught me off guard and woke me up all at once. I looked around. There was nothing and no one around at this hour, and the temperature was negative. I thought back to the only time it had gone off in Ian's joke. He knew perfectly well by now that I didn't find it funny, and I had made it clear that I hoped he would not do it again or he would get his butt kicked. I stood there, looking back, looking for someone who obviously didn't exist. Still suspicious, though, I resumed my walk, keeping my phone in my hand. After a minute, it vibrated again. You are being followed. I looked around again, but there was nothing. I was starting to panic. I was alone in the middle of the night, and I was beginning to think something was wrong. A paper cup was pushed by the wind, and the noise startled me. Is anyone there? I said out loud. Obviously, no one answered, though. If there's anyone, I'm warning you, I'm armed, I lied, trying to sound as convincing as possible. When nothing happened, I started to turn around to resume my walk, and at the last moment, out of the corner of my eye, As I turned my head, I swore I saw something moving in the shadows in the corner of an alley. It took me a while to process what I'd seen. At first, I thought it had been a cat. No, cats don't have white eyes. I walked quicker. You are being followed. Behind me there was absolute silence. Another vibration. You are being followed. Was it the sound of bare feet on the sidewalk I just heard? You are being followed. I clutched my pepper spray can as I took the last few steps to my car while looking around like a mad woman attacked by imaginary birds. I closed the car door and locked the doors. Finally, I managed to exhale the air that I'd been holding in my lungs. I didn't wait any longer, not wanting to linger here, and started my engine. Once home, I took a shower and got ready for bed. It had been a strange night. The more I thought about it, the more I wondered why the application had triggered so many times. Wasn't it possible that there had been a malfunction and I just imagined what I thought I was hearing and seeing because of stress? After a while, I came to the conclusion that the app was just bugged and that my overactive imagination combined with my natural fear of being attacked had done the rest. I put my phone in my pocket and made several trips to the kitchen to throw away the remains of my dinner. My cell phone vibrated. You are being followed. It felt like my heart stopped. I stood there for several seconds, staring at my screen. I raised my head slowly and looked around. I inspected every nook and every cranny accessible to my view without making a move. The light in my bedroom was still off. Apart from that, I couldn't see any place where an intruder might be. I made my way discreetly towards my bedroom. Stop stressing, you said it yourself. This app doesn't even work, I said to myself. I continued walking slowly and put my hand on the light switch just left to the door. I pressed it. I took a few steps inside, but without a doubt, no intruder, ghost, or monster had entered my room. As I returned to the living room, reassured, my gaze was drawn to the window and the night outside. And there I saw the pale face of a creature glued to the glass, staring at me with the two widest eyes I'd ever seen in my life. After a second spent trying to understand what I was seeing, I screamed in fear. And then there's a little gap here and it says, the police immediately dispatched a patrol car after my panicked call. The two officers inspected the area around the house without finding anyone who resembled the vague description I'd given them, even though they seemed worried. I had obviously avoided mentioning the fact that what I had seen had white eyes and skin and a bald head. After a while, they had to leave and told me to call back if I ever saw someone at my window again. I closed all my shutters and spent the night awake, a knife resting on the living room table. When day broke, I finally got the courage to leave my house. I looked around it and saw something police hadn't seen or hadn't wanted to tell me. Just below the window where I'd seen this thing, there were dozens and dozens of bare footprints going from left to right towards all the other windows. And that's the end of the story, everyone. basement. My husband and I recently bought a home. I thought it was perfect, our own little piece of the world that no one else could come to. I couldn't have been more wrong. Well, I think that wraps up the tour. Do you have any questions for me? Anything at all? I'm an open book, the realtor beamed. I could see straight through her fakeade, but in all honesty, I didn't mind her fake kindness all that much. If I was making a commission on a home worth 300 grand, I'd be smiling until my cheeks were numb. Nope, I'm all set, my husband said, looking at me for confirmation. I'm all good too. It was a pleasure to meet you, Carla. We'll be in touch, I replied, extending my hand. She eagerly snatched it, pulverizing my fingers in her grip. The pleasure is all mine, she insisted, with that wide, unwavering grin still plastered to her face. Once she'd thoroughly turned my tendons to mush, Carla moved to her next victim. My husband Clint looked equally as uncomfortable. Here, take my business card. Did I already give you a business card? Ah, forget it. Better safe than sorry, she said, slapping one onto each of her outstretched hands. I winced. I still hadn't recovered from her death shake. Okay, I'll see you two later. If you make up your minds, don't hesitate to call me, okay? Doesn't matter what time, either. If you have an epiphany at 2 in the morning, so be it. I can't wait to hear from you. Take care now, she shouted, beelining for her car. Clint shot me a look. Real piece of work right there. I don't think I've ever heard someone rattle off a string of words that quickly in my entire life. And that's really saying something, because I've listened to a lot of Eminem. You're not kidding, I giggled. Think she's on something. And then it cuts, and it says, I think we should buy it, I said, resting my back against the headboard. I'm just not sold yet. It's a teeny bit out of our price range, and you have to admit, that vomit green wallpaper in the nursery is just hideous. I mean, seriously, who in their right mind would choose that for their newborn? So what if it's a bit of a fixer-upper? We can repaint it, no biggie. At least consider it, okay? I really like that house. Alright, I'll consider it, if, Clint began, a devious grin spreading across his lips. You give me a little sugar. Give you a little sugar? I almost puked in my mouth right there. What are you, 60? But whatever. If it helps my case, I'll do it, I joked, planting a kiss on his cheek. Long story short, I got what I wanted. I won't bore you with the details, but we closed on the house relatively quickly. And once we had all our ducks in a row, we were prepared to move in. I should have been more careful about what I wished for. Where'd the nose candy queen say she was going to meet us again? Clint asked as we tentatively approached the front door of our new home. I think she said something about giving the house one last inspection to make sure everything's up to par, whatever that means. She said she'd leave the door unlocked for us. Yeah, that's not suspicious at all, Clint said, pushing the door open. Just be nice. This is the last time we'll have to deal with her, I said, following my husband across the threshold. Carla, Clint shouted, wandering the empty rooms. Carla, it's Clint and Ava. Where are you? He yelled, his voice echoing off the walls. Coming, a muffled voice responded, catching us both off guard. Suddenly, Carla burst through a door in the kitchen. She looked winded. Her usual meticulously straightened brown hair was disheveled, and a Were you down in the basement? Clint asked, his brow quirked. I'm fine, really. Just dandy. I was, making sure the paint's dry. We had to have the basement redone last minute. Would you believe that I was careless enough to leave the door unlocked after the last tour? Well, as luck would have it, a pack of scoundrels waltzed right in, and what did they do? They wrote nasty curses on the walls of the basement. If I find them, It's okay, I interjected. New paint job. Got it. We'll make sure to stay out of there for a little bit. Do you have the keys? Oh yes, the keys. Right here, she said, dropping them onto my outstretched palm with a small clink. The copies of your documents are on the counter, and everything else will be sent to you by mail or electronically. Now, if you excuse me, I really must be going. Congratulations, you do. Thanks, Clint muttered as the front door slammed shut behind her. Well, that was weird. It seemed like she was up to something. Wanna check the basement? I said, my eyes lighting up like the 4th of July. We can check it later. I don't want to get high from the paint fumes if she actually wasn't BSing. Even if she was, you and I both know what she was probably doing down there. She's got a serious problem. Booger sugar this early in the morning. Some people. Yeah, some people. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. By the time we were done unpacking for the day, I was exhausted enough to fall asleep standing up. Moving is not easy, let me tell ya. Needless to say, Carla in the basement had completely slipped my mind. I wish I had gone down there sooner. The next morning, my curiosity got the better of me. My eyes kept wandering to the door, and eventually I just couldn't help myself. Don't you think it's weird? Clint started, taking a sip from his coffee mug. Don't I think what's weird? I blubbered through a mouthful of toast. The basement, Carla, the black paint. I tried to use the move as an excuse to keep my mind off of it, but I just can't, he admitted, putting down his newspaper. A smile inched across my lips. So you can't get it off your mind either. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? He sighed, standing from his seat. Yeah, let's get this over with. Come on. Yay, mystery time, I said, bouncing to the basement door. Yeah, woo-hoo, Clint muttered, pulling the doorknob and flicking on the light. The stairs creaked as we descended. A sickly yellow bulb bathed the room in a dim glow. Carla wasn't kidding about the paint job. The walls were pitch black, leading an eerie ambience to the room. I felt a shiver run down my spine as we reached the bottom step. This is what I was talking about. Even if Carla was telling the truth, why did they choose to paint the walls black? That's just such a strange color selection. I'm with you on that, I mumbled, lost in thought. Without thinking, my legs carried me to the wall on my right. I ran a hand over the surface, half expecting it to be covered in residue when I pulled it away. But it wasn't. I just had a gnawing feeling that something was not right. I don't want to be down here anymore. It's kinda creepy, I said, turning to Clint's side. That's the understatement of the century. Once we're completely moved in, we are definitely painting over this. Agreed, now let's get out of here. I heard it for the first time that afternoon. The ringing, that is. Clint was running to the store to grab some essentials, and I was in the kitchen preparing lunch. That's when I heard the muffled buzzing sound. Buzz, buzz, buzz. What is that? was its source. I inhaled deeply, mustering all my courage. I knew what I had to do. In one swift motion, I flung open the basement door, flicked on the light, and snatched a knife from the countertop. She's braver than me. I would have been waiting on my boyfriend to get home. I'd be like, that's your problem. Just kidding, I'd go down with him, but still, girl, she's brave. I was met with an empty room. The buzzing stopped less than a second after I opened the door. I stared down in confusion. I could have sworn that what I was hearing was real, but without any proof, I was beginning to question if I'd actually heard anything at all. Must be the stress. No point getting worked up over it. And with that, I tried to push the incident out of my mind. I tried. I really did. But of course, I just couldn't. Clint and I spent the remainder of the day unpacking and getting more things moved. We again found ourselves in the kitchen, chowing down on takeout when I decided to bring up the subject. So, this might be a weird question, but have you heard buzzing lately? I don't know. What kind of buzzing? Clint asked, shoving a forkful of lo mein into his mouth. Vibrating. It's like someone has their phone on silent. I could have sworn I heard it coming from the basement earlier. No, not that I know of. Maybe you're just... Buzz. 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 Out of the blue, there it was. Dread curled in my stomach. It happened right on cue, as if I'd spoken it into existence. Clint met my gaze, his eyes as wide as saucers. He slowly rose from his chair and crept over to the basement door. He cautiously turned the knob, and as quietly as he could, he opened the door. My breath was caught in my throat, heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what was down there, but now I knew I wasn't making it up. Clint turned on the light, illuminating the desolate space. Again, we were met with nothing but an empty, poorly lit room. The ringing continued for a few seconds before it stopped, plunging us into a tense silence. Believe me now, I squeaked. Yeah, that was strange. Maybe one of the painters left their phone down there. Impossible. We've searched that whole area. There's nothing down there. I'll admit, it's definitely creepy, but there has to be a rational explanation. Maybe some kind of defect from faulty wiring or something. I don't know. Best not to worry about it too much. It'll just end up driving us crazy. Yeah, you're right. I'm sure we'll figure out about it soon enough. Even if I wasn't convinced of that, I couldn't kid myself. I just wasn't the kind to push it out of my mind. No, I needed answers, and I was dead set on finding them. Of course, I was up all night thinking about it, and because of that, I was awake for much longer than I intended to be. So it came as no surprise when I found Clint waiting for me at the table with breakfast prepared. What was a surprise was his attire. Good morning, Sleeping Beauty, Clint grinned, turning his seat to face me. Morning, I yawned, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. Why are you dressed like that? I thought you took off this whole week. I decided to go into the office today, remember? I'm almost out of PTO. Right, it's coming back to me now. Have a great day at work and thanks for breakfast, I said, sliding out of my chair. You're welcome, honey. Love you, Clint replied, sliding up to me and planting a kiss on my forehead. Love you too, I said as he dropped his plate off in the sink. Don't get to any mischief while I'm gone, okay? Save that for when I get back, he smirked, shooting me a wink as he prepared to leave. No promises. promises," I retorted, returning a warm smile. The moment the door closed, I bolted down to the basement. I really needed answers. Little did I know, those answers would lead to the most traumatic experience of my life. I began to inspect the walls. If I was hiding something, where would I do it? I ran my fingers along the jet black surface. I was honestly expecting to find nothing at all, but to my shock, that's not what happened. Once I reached the center wall in direct view of the kitchen, I found it. My heart jumped when my fingertips landed on a divot in the plaster. It continued, up and around and back down the other side. The realization finally dawned on me. I had found the outline of a door. So that's what Carla was trying to hide. A sinking feeling settled into my stomach. Why had that door been sanded down and painted over? Carla had obviously been hoping we wouldn't find this, but fortunately, she hadn't filled the gaps in the frame well enough. Big mistake. I began to feel around for where the doorknob used to be, but I found nothing. I sighed. I knew Clint probably wouldn't approve what I was about to do next, but I had to know. I sprinted upstairs and into the garage where Clint kept his tools. I rummaged through an assortment of wrenches and screwdrivers before I found what I'd been searching for. I triumphantly raised my hammer in my grip and pumped my fist, then returned to the basement. I faced the area where the door had been, mustering up my courage. I had the hammer raised, prepared to strike. But before I could, it started again. Buzz, buzz, buzz. I instinctively leapt back, struggling to maintain my breathing. "Come on, Ava, you can do this." I didn't wait for the noise to stop. I swung the hammer against the wooden surface again and again. Whack, whack, whack. I broke through, sending me sprawling forward. I continued to smash away at the flimsy material until I'd made a big hole enough to fit through. I turned on my phone flashlight, adrenaline surging through my veins. Nothing could have prepared me for what I would find. I tentatively stepped through the rupture in the door, and my nose was immediately assaulted by a pungent stench. I fumbled for a light switch, finding one on the wall beside me. Once the room was fully lit, I released a deafening shriek. Dozens of bodies were scattered throughout the space. Most of them were cocooned in a shrink wrap like mummies, their frail skin and bones hidden under a thin veil of plastic. Blood was everywhere, so much blood. Their expressions are what will haunt me forever. The corpses were in various states of decay, but they all had one thing in common. Their faces were all contorted into permanent, horrified screams. Oh my gosh. I nearly passed out when I heard the ringing start back up. I hesitantly glanced down to find a cell phone buzzing on the floor. It was receiving a call. The battery was almost dead, but it was still hanging on. My heart shattered when I read the name on the cracked screen. Mom. I looked to my left and nearly lost my lunch. A man who looked to be in his mid-20s had been chained against a wall. His eyes were missing, dried blood caking his cheeks. His throat had been cut, dark, vicious crimson stuck to his shirt. Out of them all, his body looked the least decomposed. Tears began to well in my eyes when I noticed his arm extended toward the phone. It was as if whoever had put him there intentionally placed it inches from his fingertips. He'd been so close. If only he would have reached it. Oh my gosh. stumbled backwards, exiting through the opening I'd made. Once the sobs and shivers that racked my body subsided, I called the police. In total, 15 bodies were pulled out of that room. I would later find out that the cell phone I'd recovered had belonged to a 23-year-old man who had lived alone. Friends and family had been calling for up to 4 days to no avail. 4 days. We'd been living in that house for a little more than 2. Needless to say, Clint and I didn't stay there. We're back at my parents' house for the time being while we try and get that place off our hands. Though Clint has assured me over and over again that we'll be okay, I don't feel safe because Carla is still out there. Neither the police nor the real estate agency have heard from her since. According to them, our home was her only sale. I still don't know what to do.